because I'm in a very similar boat right now, towards the end of my career, and I'm deciding what I want to do next. And there's a lot of NFL guys out there that are in a very similar boat. How did you go from being in the locker room, on the battlefield, with your teammates? How do you go from those two environments, which are completely polar opposites? All right, guys, welcome back to NetWorth. I am your host, Justin Pugh. We are on the Athlete Podcast Network. This one's a little bit different. We've been having some conversations about salary cap and the cap versus cash dilemma. But in the next few weeks, leading up to the NFL draft, I want to share some thoughts with my fellow NFL players. This episode is really aimed towards you guys to be a resource into the private equity space. Operating in that space and even getting started can be tricky. So the guest I'm bringing on today will help lower those barriers and provide some insight on the space. So before I introduce our guest, I would like to remind you to subscribe to the show. For all our regular viewers, I appreciate all the support as we continue to grow. I will make sure I get all the respective fan bases in there. I'm not partial to Cleveland or Philadelphia, obviously. My New York Giants, my Arizona Cardinals fans, much appreciated. So keep commenting your thoughts, who you want us to have on. But without further ado, let me introduce our first guest into this series off the field, Matt Schachman. Matt is a partner at Cold War Capital, started there in 2017. Before joining Cold War, Matt founded Chamberlain Advisors, a Chicago-based human capital staffing and placement firm. Prior to founding Chamberlain Advisors, he worked at Bank of America with the investment banking group. And before that, he was in the U.S. Army as an Army Infantry Officer for over 5 years. And that is where our conversation begins. He had active deployments for 2 total years in Iraq and Afghanistan. And during his service, he held various leadership positions such as strategic planner, executive officer, battalion planner, scout platoon leader, and platoon leader. Matt is an alumni of the United States Military Academy at West Point, and he went to Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. Matt, thank you for coming on. Sorry, it was a long list, man. You really put me to shame. I went Syracuse and played a little football. You had this laundry list. First off, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate having you.
Awesome, Justin. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to the conversation today and what you're doing for everybody out there with the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy road and us getting connected through our friend Janine. She made some comments. You had to have the Georgia football in the background, and your office. I got to step up my office game. Like everything I have going on back here, we're gonna get that worked on. Athlete Podcast Network has to help me out a little bit. We need an interior designer on the show. Is that what I think I need? So you go through, your training to get deployed. You get deployed. You do 2 tours in Iraq. Is that correct? Or one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I was in Iraq 08-09 during the surge in MND North, and then Afghanistan for a year on the border with Pakistan in Kunar 2011, 2012.
Now, how does this work? You have guys that come in a different route that just go right into the military. You have guys that go into the academy, and then you're bringing all these guys from all these different walks of life. It's just like a football team trying to get all these guys to come together. You come out of the academy and now you're a leader of a platoon, or how does that all work together? Those dynamics?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that the Army is one of the most diverse places in the country. Like to your point, right? There's people from every state, every religion, creed, background you can think of. And then you're on a team together and you got to figure it out. I'm stepping into a platoon where, the E1s to E4s, so like the guys who just enlisted are new. I'm new. Everybody else, all the NCOs, non-commissioned officers like E5, E6, and the platoon sergeant had all just been on a 15-month deployment to Iraq before I got there. And a lot of them had been on a 12-month deployment to Afghanistan before that. So, there's definitely, again, I'll throw right back at you some analogies that don't totally fit, but, like showing up as a lieutenant who's like theoretically in charge of you are in charge, you're in charge of the platoon, but like you're brand new. Right. So I'm in Chicago. So it looks like we're taking Caleb Williams, right? Like he shows up in the locker room. He's supposed to be the guy and the quarterback, but he hasn't played a down of football in the NFL yet, and you're playing with, you got a bunch of veterans that have kind of been there, done that. So not the same dynamic, but a little bit of that. And like vivid memory, my first morning doing PT with the platoon, they're like, all right, go run with so-and-so. And I'm like, okay. And they just spent an hour trying to smoke me, because he was like the best runner. And so, it was just, and we'd been told for 5 years, between 4 years in school and then a year in training, like, make sure no one in your platoon can smoke you, basically, because they're going to try.
They have to test you. They have to test you. I think at the
Yep.
end of the day, as a veteran, a guy that I was in Arizona when we drafted Kyler Murray, first overall. He had every accolade that you could in high school and college. And the
Yep.
entire time, we know we need a quarterback to win the game. So at the end of the day, we know the need. But on the other hand, it's like, all right, this guy has to prove his stripes. So I think that is something that is an interesting dynamic. But it's really like being the first round pick. You come in, it's like, hey, we need you to make an impact. You're going to be a key member to this, and we need you to go. So you spend your time, you're deployed. I'm sure you have, a ton of experience that has impacted how you see life, how you see business. You come back to the States after the deployment, and you jump right into business school. Or how did the transition process for you was, how did that go?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, let's see. I really didn't think about what was I going to stay in, was I going to get out. At the beginning, it was just totally focused on being great at what I'm doing. And then, as that kind of second deployment came around, just family decision, like, all right, this is going to be it. And then ended up, so I applied to business school when I was in Afghanistan, which I would not
You're,
recommend.
you're in the desert, and you're like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. I'm done with this.
Yeah, I mean, we had, my wife just, again, like personal and professional mix, right? Like we had said, hey, if I say I have to stay in, this is my calling forever, she'll say yes. And if she says like I've had enough after the first 5 years, then I'll get out and do something else. So we kind of made that mutual decision before the second deployment. And I could have gone to Fort Benning to get, I kind of chose to stay to do the second deployment. And I felt like, all right, I will have done Iraq and Afghanistan. I'll feel good about getting out, after that. And then made the decision to thought about law school versus business school. And then you know, business school cared more about your leadership background versus just your test scores. That was my level of understanding at the time. And so I was like, all right, I'll do business school. Like they care more on a relative basis about my differentiated strengths. And so then applied from Afghanistan and, found out I got in. I flew back for my mid-tour leave and like did my interview, like 12 hours after landing. So I got a funny story about my only time taking an Ambien for another day on that plane ride. So
It was probably tough coming right from Afghanistan. You were in Afghanistan or Iraq at the time?
Afghanistan, yeah.
On a plane from Afghanistan back to Chicago, landing, doing your interview. We had to take Ambien one time going over to play in London. We were playing a UK
Yep.
game, and I remember we were like zombies. So I can only imagine how that one went.
It's all good. Yeah.
All right, so you go into business school. You're at Northwestern, one of the best
Yep.
in the country. Was it How was that process? Because I'm in a very similar boat right now, towards the end of my career, the end of my deployment, as you know, and I'm deciding what I want to do next. And there's a lot of NFL guys out there that are in a very similar boat. How did you go from being in the locker room, on the battlefield with your teammates? I'm sure everything wasn't politically correct at all times. The way you guys talk to each other,
Yep.
there's maybe some curse words thrown in there, and HR wouldn't have been happy. How do you go from those two environments, which are completely polar opposites? And how did you handle that?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely an adjustment. There's, you do a trip kind of before, to your point on mentors. So you do a trip before school officially starts with a small group. And one of the leaders of the group, Marine Corps veteran, and he pulled me aside after like 12 hours of the trip, and he said, "Hey man, like how long since you got back from Afghanistan?" I was like, "Oh, like 4 months." He's like, "All right, like you just got to try and like chill out, calm down a little bit." So I can remember like exactly where I was. You know, you can visualize yourself like on a sidewalk or something when someone told you something. So I can hear Mike Green telling me that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think first it's like the mentor side of things. Like get people who have walked in your shoes, whether it's 6 or 12 months ahead or 2, 3, 4 years, and then also, you know, found people, 5, 10 years ahead. So again, on the mentor front, got people both with military experience and without military experience that had successfully transitioned on the military side, and then people who are just doing a good job. And I think like learning language is a really important transition thing. So I decided I wanted to get into finance because I thought like culturally that was the closest thing to what I had experienced on teams and in the military. And so I watch CNBC, like listen to financial podcasts just to be able to like use the words. Maybe right, like different teams call plays, different things, right? And you gotta like learn the playbook, but you're trying to make your own culture and your own language, I think. Doing that, and like business is kind of the same thing. So like when you're talking the language of finance, it makes it seem like, like, all right, they've already done the work and that they know it better.
Yeah, he speaks the lingo. At the end of the day, we're all just a bunch of idiots. But if you can speak the language, you get a little bit more respect. So, and when I say
Totally.
we're all idiots, I mean even people in the business world. Like everyone tries to put on this front like they have it all figured out. Nobody has it all figured out, and that's something that I've learned as well. It's like, hey, if we can lower the guard a little bit, we all have great things that we bring to the table. Let's find ways to work together as team. Now, was the team philosophy the same when you were in business school? I think it was a little bit more of like the competitive, like, I had to put myself first. Did you find yourself battling with like, I know what's best for me and working together in a unit. And now I'm in this like one-on-one situation. How'd that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more of that. I mean, honestly, one reason that I picked Kellogg is I thought, you know, on a relative basis, it had more of a culture of helping each other. And I'd say there, like, at the end of the day, everybody was out for themselves, but the group culture would crush you if it looked like you were stomping on somebody else to get ahead. And again, it kind of goes back to like what I learned at West Point on the like, all right, sometimes somebody's going to be good at military or physical and someone else is good at academic. Like when it came to there's a lot of really smart people that understand business stuff and they haven't led anybody or anything, right? So they're like really interested in learning about my experiences. And I'm like, all right, Josh, like, can you teach me the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet? And he's like, yeah, I've been doing that for 5 years. Um, so I think it's that same thing, right? Like, how do you build teams and relationships where there can be mutual benefit? And so that was, and look, and then also like your diligence on the front end on a relative basis. How do I pick a culture that's going to better align to the way I want to operate and my personality and stuff like that?
No, it's perfect. And I think that kind of leads into where we're at today. So you go and you start Chamberlain Advisors, or I guess you went to Merrill Lynch first in the investment banking
Yep.
side. Then you found Chamberlain Advisors. Eventually, it leads you to Cold War Capital. And that's really what I want to dive into next. Tell me about Cold War, the mission. I wanted to give the background of like how you think of life and how you think of business first, because I think that really is in the foundation. And we'll talk more about the core pillars of Cold War here in a second. But how did like how did that come about? Tell us about Cold War and how you guys got started.
Yeah, so I met my partner Sergio in 2017. And look, I mean, I think first, okay, so what we do, right? We do microcap, lower middle market buy and build strategies. So we're buying services businesses between 500K and 5 million of EBITDA and helping grow them into 10 to $25 million platforms and then selling them to middle market private equity.
So give
So
us an example, because because I think the scary part of private equity and what's always made me nervous, like, all right, there's this term out there, private equity. What is that? So what the hell is private equity? When you say 500 to 5 million
Yeah.
EBITDA, break that down to like, I play football for a living. I'm used to blocking Aaron Donald. Now tell me what it is.
Okay, fair. We use private capital that we raise from other people in order to buy, merge, and build a larger business by taking a bunch of smaller ones.
Could
So,
you give me an example?
yeah. So, like, we had a landscaping platform. So, we bought, commercial landscaping, like literally cutting the grass. And so we got, different landscaping businesses in Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Ohio, and Florida, put them together, built a platform, which means, integrating different things from the different small businesses, and then you package it together. So just think about, like, we're a manufacturer of bigger businesses. We take small businesses, we manufacture them together in order to make a bigger business, so that somebody who wants to, deploy more capital can take that bigger business and turn that into a much bigger business.
I love it. It's just roll ups, it's small business roll ups. I've kind of been, and this is what gets me excited about it. Matt and I met and we had lunch a few weeks ago, and you started telling me about it. And we can circle back to cold war if there's anything else you want to touch on there. But what got me so excited and gives me goosebumps now is transitioning out of any sport. The things that we're best at is working together in a team. And we know what it takes to build a great team. You were built to be in a team from the time that you were in high school on the sports team you were in or the group project you were in to the military, which is the most team oriented profession on planet Earth, to then going to Kellogg and mixing in the business acumen. Buying and building these businesses is such a amazing experience. And as people begin to age out, I'm sure there's, demographic ages of the boomers, and then they're starting to sell their businesses. Is that something that you've seen the military in your background? This is the perfect thing. You tripped and fell into it, or you knew private equity was. How did you find buying of these businesses and using your
Yeah.
expertise in operations?
So I think especially for the part of the market that we are in, it's the ability, execution, teamwork, and being able to build something is really, really important. When the businesses get bigger, you're selling the fact that, it can kind of run itself a little bit more. So, I think in the human capital staffing and placement world, that was part of my thesis in that business. Then I also understood what it was like to be an owner operator and start a small business. And then met Sergio, and his background was more kind of traditional middle market private equity, where they were buying the bigger businesses. And, the thesis is like, all right, like let's go to this smaller area where the quantum and quality of the boots on ground human capital you have is really going to dictate, can you win or not? And we felt like, our backgrounds plus the ability to build an awesome team of people with those execution skills would give us an edge in that space.
So you guys have created these core pillars, and I think the one thing that I come back to and why it's impactful for NFL guys is you guys help solve for the cash flow equation. I always talk about this on all my episodes. NFL athletes are like lottery winners. We come into this sudden wealth where, for me personally, I was asking my mom for money to go to Subway and Chipotle when I was in college. And then the next week, I get drafted in the first round, and the Giants cut me a check for a few $1,000,000. Now, all of a sudden, these dynamics change. All of a sudden, I go buy a Range Rover with that first check because I think I'm the man. I'm living in New York City. Cash flow jumps up, lifestyle jumps up. Then when you retire, the lifestyle is still here. Cash flow goes to zero. And now all of a sudden, this delta is how guys go broke. Everyone thinks NFL players are, I mentioned the Range Rover, that was one purchase. A lot of times they're helping families, they're doing foundations, they're doing all these great things. If we can't replace the cash flow, that is how NFL players get in financial trouble. So, how does what you do help solve that equation?
Yeah. So
Not just, and not just, I'm sorry, not just for NFL players, but for everyone out there, because everyone has that cash flow dilemma. They've slowly built up over time. But how does, a business like landscaping help NFL players?
Yeah, I mean, so look, we're selecting recession resilient businesses with pricing power that are kind of already established and cash flowing, right? And so we try and eliminate as many variables as possible outside of like what we can control and execution on the ground. So, in that alternative asset space, there's all kinds of different things. Venture capital is much more like a moonshot. A lot of them go to zero. You get your money back on some, and then you have a couple of huge winners. Thing about what we're trying to do is like, hit, doubles, singles, doubles. Every once in a while you get a home run, but your odds of striking out are very, very low. And so those small business owners, get, they're making $1, $2, $3 million a year for 20 or 30 years with their awesome small business. And then, we can provide a pretty material liquidity event for them if they want to be done, and or a lot of times if they want to, roll into the platform and then get a second bite at the apple when they sell, it works out really well for them. So, I'm not a financial planner, so I'm not giving financial advice, but I think
We will put a disclaimer. We will put a disclaimer.
Yes.
This is not financial advice.
Yes, but excuse me, but I think that, having, when you think about how are you deploying your capital, right? You have to think about, what are your liquidity needs, short, medium term? How are you both meeting your liquidity needs, but then also like maintaining and or building the lifestyle that you want to have. And I think to your point, a lot of that comes in on the numerator, if you want to think about it that way, for like, what are you spending? And then
How much am I
obviously,
spending a month? How can I bring in enough income? You guys do something that's brilliant that I want to highlight. You have this, for lack of a better term, correct me, like a business accelerator. So you buy these businesses. How do you staff them properly? Well, you just so happen to have access to the best, the brightest, the best teamwork guys. You go out and you find former military that are also transitioning out like you were once, and you bring them into this program to help put them in positions of leadership within these organizations. Do I get that right? Can you kind of expand upon that and how that came about?
Yep. So we have, most of our team has been built through our internship program. A lot of them straight from the military, some with a few years of experience. And so they'll come in, and we go through a lot of robust testing, vetting with them on the front end to even let them into the program, including but not limited to, like we're gonna have them teach themselves through videos how to build a 3-statement model in 90 minutes or less, right? Even though like most of them are not going to be on the investment team side, but just making sure they really understand finance and have the grit to understand that kind of stuff. Then they're gonna spend, 10 to 16 weeks, in an actual on the ground internship where they're working with our team. And then, it's kind of like they're going to get more and more responsibility during that as it goes on. And then, offered a full-time position afterwards if it's a good fit for them and a good fit for us. And, people that have done that, people that did that, 3-4 years ago are now kind of graduating into much more leadership positions, and it'll be mentoring, the next crop of guys and gals that come up for our next groups.
But it is brilliant. I mean, I think when you told me that, it struck a chord with me, and it's something that we try to do. There's this company called Pro Athlete Community in the NFL that they do this business accelerator program at Miami. I actually went to, and it sparks that fire. And then that 2.0 version is how do you actually put it into practice? The internship and the mentorship is huge. You have this unique funnel of talent from the military that operates better than almost anyone on planet Earth in terms of discipline and the different structures that we talked about in the background. To pair that with like the mom and pop businesses, and I don't say that to be derogatory anytime, like, a family that's running a business, it is brilliant. So I guess the next question is, how do you pair the two of the is it a capital constrained problem? Because a lot of times companies are struggling to build talent. I'm starting this company athlete podcast network, and like we're talent constrained at the time, not
Yes.
capital constrained. Where do you see the struggles for you guys at the moment? Or if there's none, you can say none.
No. Well, look, I guess what I'd say is when I talk to a difference between the way I think that we can talk to awesome small business owners that are thinking about what to go do next is that I can talk to them about like what are the human capital and physical capital constraints that are limiting your company's ability to grow, right? Because we bring a team for both. And, so whether it's the people, there aren't a lot of small business owners that started their business because they love doing back office finance, accounting, and IT, right? We have those teams, you know, um, and there's only so many hours in the day, and you have to pick priorities. When we bring in a dedicated execution person in order just to help, make things happen faster and drive execution, you can get more done much faster. So that's another. So yeah, that both the human capital and physical capital, we can help the great businesses grow faster. When they have that more like, hey, I want to keep doing this for 5 more years, and when they want to be done sooner than that, we can help with the transition. Maybe they've got somebody internally or they're not sure, and then our people kind of help ease that transition in order to take the business to the next level.
In my head, it makes such perfect sense because it just seems like there's the perfect storm with me. Maybe we got to start. Maybe I got to come do this 6 week immersive program and see how and see it firsthand. But I feel like there's such a good correlation with these folks that I work with every single day, and we have access to capital, and we're looking for passive investments, and then you have the operation excellence that you guys bring to the table. I feel like there is so much synergy there that maybe we continue this conversation offline because really what you're doing and having that transition, a lot of our guys know exactly what it takes to go through it. So let's just dive into
Yeah.
a couple more of those. Go ahead.
No, I just, Justin, I mean, I think another, like when you're talking like that, look, I mean, the most important thing I ever did professionally was lead soldiers in combat, right? And like when you think about how do I go find something to do so I'm not like the glory day guy just talking about the past all the time, like you miss I, you almost miss the locker room more than the field sometimes. And I think like one of the best compliments that I've gotten from some of the people on our team is about like how they feel the team room is one of the words for it, right? The different military units have different words for it, but they're like, hey, it feels like I'm back in the team room because I'm surrounded by people who are, you know, of really high caliber, focused on doing really hard things, working really hard. And then, on top of that, like we're helping build teams and build businesses. And, it's not, look, we're not doctors or firefighters or policemen, but we're helping people achieve personal and financial goals, and also like giving new people opportunities in order to grow in these different platforms. And so I think that's kind of that helps kind of give some why and some excitement. But then even more importantly, for us, like we're trying to show by doing that the skills and like servant leadership actually matters, right? Like the things that we learned in the military and similar that you learn in sports, those things translate in a way that can ultimately make people's lives better, but also create value for everybody. And at the end of the day, like if you make people money doing that, they're gonna pay attention more than if you just talk about it.
100%. I mean, if you can do good and make dollars, it's the perfect combination. And I think that was the one core pillar that I also want to touch on is that servant leadership. Where did that come about? Is that, everyone talks about in their business, we have this North Star and we have to stay true to our mission. Is servant leadership is the one thing for you guys that helps differentiate you? Like what is you look at, there's a lot of private equity firms out there. Obviously we have the operational excellence, ability to get capital. I've found that if you have good deals and they underwrite well, you can find the capital. So really, is that the differentiator when you're going out to clients right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think that's like a big part of the foundation, because ultimately, again, people from any background can be great servant leaders, right? but it's also something that's like out there enough, and there's enough TED Talks on it that like anybody can say it, you know. Like when I say it, I get like a guttural feeling and like think about the ways that it was seared into my mind from mentors and experiences. And I know that, everybody on our team pretty much feels the same way, whether that's because of sports or the military or something else in their background. And it's, we're going on the ground with these small businesses, trying to establish trust with the owners, then with the teams, and then helping build them to something. And a lot of time, these are people-focused businesses also. So you just, you can't get people motivated to be their best if they don't actually think that you care about them. It's just, I mean, I'm sure everybody that's listening, that's, one of your peers in the NFL, there's like the paycheck, reputation, motivation, but then like, when your coach and the organization are really behind you, there's just another level you can go to. It's been the same thing in the military and with our teams. So I think that, trust is a huge market friction. And, our backgrounds, and when we look people in the eye and tell them like, we're going to take care of your team and give them an opportunity to grow, there's a level of credibility we have because of our backgrounds. And then like go talk to the other people we've already done it with in order to diligence us and check us.
Oh, 100%. I think we've kind of touched on some of the other pillars that you guys have: picking ground, making sure you're doing it in the right places for the right reasons, and risk mitigation. I feel like when you come to the door knocking, it's like, oh, I have a process in place. It's not just Joe Schmo down the street trying to buy my small business. You feel like you're putting your business into the right hands. Is there anything on those two pillars that we haven't touched on that you would like
Yeah,
to
I mean, I think like people generally, we talk about our backgrounds and all that stuff. People understand like the grit and the execution side of things. I think on the risk mitigation, it's not the first thing people think about, but the military planning process, and it is incredibly robust, thinking through all the different courses of action. What are all the things that could go wrong? How do I create contingencies for all those? And then, no plan survives first contact. So it's both like, how do you prepare to do all that risk mitigation? But then you're also very comfortable with the ambiguity of the real world because you've done that prep when things actually happen. I'm sure I'm getting out in front of my skis because I'm not a football player, right? But like you got the game plan for the game. Maybe you scripted the first 15 plays, but then like what they do isn't exactly what you expected. But that preparation and all the film study and everything else allows you to, whoever can react faster to what the other person is doing and make the adjustments faster is going to get the edge. And, I think our teams have a lot of experience doing that, both on other fields on other days, and then obviously in the business world as well.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And the guys that can respond, the guys and girls that can respond are the ones that have success. Matt, I really appreciate it. I mean, this has been an unbelievable conversation. I know I told you 45 minutes. Then when I start hearing your story, it starts leading to other questions. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the Georgia football. West Point guy.
Go Dogs.
We're both. I have the Syracuse behind me, but we have a Georgia Bulldog leading the program, former Georgia Bulldog Fran Brown. So we're both. I need Georgia to have success.
Yeah.
Is it? I guess the next question would be: is there a resource out there right now within your organization? If there's a military guy listening, I work closely with Merging Vets and Players, which helps transitioning military and NFL players off the field. I've worked with C4 Foundation. They do a great job with Navy SEALs and how they transition back to the States after deployments. If you're a military guy out there listening right now, is there a way to reach out if they want to apply to get in that immersive 6-week program? How does that work?
Yeah, just, coldwarcapital.com on our website, just click the contact us, your information goes to the team, and I get, we'll make sure, we respond to you. And, there's pretty much no one that contacts us with a military background that, we're not gonna talk to and try and help. Like that's it's definitely a big part of our why. And I think, Justin, something awesome that you're doing for people from the NFL community that's important that we do too is, also tell people like, how are you not prepared, or what are the holes and things? And it kind of takes somebody that's been there before in order to do that. People from the outside are worried about giving you the constructive feedback. So I think that's something else that you'll get both here are your strengths and here are the holes and things you need to work on. That was something that was really important to me from my mentors and my development, and trying to pay that forward as well.
Yeah, finding that mentorship, finding that internship, getting that real life experience. I challenge all my NFL guys out there to do it. What if a couple NFL guys sneak into the can we get a little NFL program? Can we run side by side and get some experience in there?
Absolutely. No, I mean, when we were talking before, there are way more similarities versus differences between the transitions. And I think that, again, saying you played in the NFL is just like saying you're in finance or you're in the military, right? That could mean 1,000 different things. But look, for people that, ultimately what I got told is, hey, if you want to take 2 steps backwards in order to be able to take 4 steps forward, in order to leverage all the skills that you have from before and apply it into a new environment, we'll create a good home for you. So I think it'd be awesome if we got a cohort of guys from your crew that are really interested in it. And I know that we could find a way that they could both add a lot of value and also learn a lot.
No, that would be amazing. All right, my NFL guys out there, check it out. It's something that, or we can find a way to pair the two. NFL guys, you have this cash flow. Maybe we find a way to find the military guys at Cold War, and we start building businesses together. There's a lot of synergy out there. Matt, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a great episode, and I look forward to getting that one out there and continuing our relationship.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate your time today.